Thanks, Doug. I think composable has been a bit of a buzzword the last few months, but it is a real there is some real substance behind this move to design technology solutions that where you can bring together kind of best in breed components for a more impactful complete solution, rather than say this monolithic kind of a cloud or suite. It puts I will say, as we kind of highlighted in the blog, the whole idea of composable, it puts a lot of onus on having really well designed architecture and solutions. Get ready to deep dive into the world of digital transformation, where we explore the latest trends, innovations, and challenges shaking up industries. Join us as we decode the secrets behind successful digital strategies and hear from experts who are at the forefront of disrupting the status quo. In each episode, we'll unravel the mysteries of the digital realm and uncover the hidden opportunities that lie within. From artificial intelligence to blockchain, from automation to cybersecurity, we'll leave no digital stone unturned. But hold on tight, because this podcast isn't your average tech talk. We're injecting a hefty dose of wit and humor into every episode, making learning about digital transformation an absolute blast. So if you're ready to embrace the digital revolution with a smile on your face, tune in to the Digital Disruption Podcast and get ready to be entertained, informed, and inspired. Don't miss out on the fun. Subscribe now and join us on this wild digital journey.
Hello and good morning.
Good evening, Doug. What's up in your world? How's everything going?
All good. You're drinking coffee, I'm drinking tea.
Nice. Did you have some time to think about my big idea, the CEO Chat GPT? Do you like it? Should we develop it, or are we gonna just put that on the pile of broken dreams that never saw the light of day?
If someone buys it, I'm down, If we can sell it to some CEOs, I'll consider it, but I have to say that maybe no.
All right. Fair enough. About that, you might say that.
It depends. Like every marketeer like to say, it depends.
That's a good consultant. That you make a fine consultant. It depends.
All right. So when I first joined e-CENS, one of the first topics that I thought were too complicated, and you wrote a blog about it, was composable architecture, and especially composable CDPs. And they are still complicated, but I do understand them. And I've seen in our show notes that you have another composable, you have another thing that is related to architecture, and I'm like, all right, so let's tackle this one, not in a blog, but in a conversation. I'm someone who doesn't know much about it. You're someone who's gonna be leading the conversation, and I'll consider myself a CEO, though I did not buy our solution. I'll think about it. Just hit me an email. I'll become a CEO and buy your solution. I'll ask the questions that I find people would be asking and wanting to know more about. So I'll pick it around and just ask you, as long as we go in our journey to explore. So the mic is yours.
Thanks, Doug. I think composable has been a bit of a buzzword the last few months, but it is a real. There is some real substance behind this move to design technology solutions that where you can bring together kind of best in breed components for a more impactful complete solution, rather than say this monolithic kind of a cloud or suite. It puts I will say, as we kind of highlighted in the blog, the whole idea of composable, it puts a lot of onus on having really well designed architecture and solutions, and it puts more work, because so like technology components that are compatible with a composable architecture, they tend to be headless, meaning they have no user interface or front end in many cases, in most cases. So that puts the onus of making everything work together, and having that front end relies on having really good developers and systems integrators, et cetera, right? So like just this sort of like composable dream is not without its costs and considerations. I want to talk specifically today about kind of event-driven architecture, data streams, because in some ways they are a component that you could layer into your data infrastructure without necessarily nuking your whole legacy architecture and infrastructure. So in some ways they're interesting in that regard, and they're very timely. Data streams are very timely from the way virtual machines, cloud-based computing, efficient storage, all of these things have kind of matured to the point where maybe 5 years ago, maybe even more up until more recently, some of that infrastructure was out of reach from a cost standpoint for all but the largest organizations. It just wouldn't have made that much sense. I think for organizations that run lean but are still data intensive organizations, now this kind of infrastructure, I would say, is more in reach from a cost benefit standpoint. So with that said, I'll jump into like data streams, what they are, why they could be really useful for a lot of organizations. I'll try to draw some comparisons to other ways data is collected, but I really just want to focus on this. I'm going to use Apache Kafka as the example, just because it's the one I'm most familiar with, and they are definitely like the full tool sets around Apache Kafka make it an easy tool for many organizations to use. So I'll just kind of talk on it. We're not going to obviously go into like designing the actual architecture solution, but I just want to give people a taste of why this could be useful. There's the last statistic I saw was something like 60% of Fortune 100 companies are using Apache Kafka. Now, I don't know if that's true, or if it's true in the sense that there's a small division within the company that's using it for I don't know what that 60% is comprised of. So I don't want to pretend like this is more ubiquitous than it is, but it is emerging and useful and potentially powerful. And I'll kind of get into the use cases that it can help to serve. So I guess let's start with the obvious, like what is it like event-driven architecture or data, what are data streams? So data streams are literally nothing other than an unbounded, continuous, real-time flow of records. Okay, so let's unpack that. It's so in contrast to either pushing a packet of data or requesting a packet of data, a data stream every time an update of some kind happens, every time an event happens, essentially, what's called a message is sent, and it just becomes a timestamped record in this continuously flowing log. Using Apache Kafka as an example, you essentially have topics, which is like a collection of related messages. So let's say you had a topic for customer transactions, so an order topic, and let's say you had a topic for customer data. So those could be two separate topics. Let's say every time a new customer record is created, a message is sent to the customer's topic. Every time a customer updates their account, their contact information, any account update, right? That could all be underneath that customer's topic. Similar for the orders topic. When an order happens, when an order status changes, right? When the order goes to fulfillment, when it goes shipped, when it goes delivered, everything associated with that transaction ID could be a separate timestamped message in that log. Then that would be all underneath that topic. Okay, so you have, in order for that to work, you have producers or publishers that are sending. Those are the clients that are sending those messages into the topic log, and then you have consumers, and they can actually then query and get that, essentially access the messages in that log. So that's how that works. And then the middleware there is called a broker, and that's where that log lives. So each message is essentially a set of key value pairs. So you just have basically an event stream with various metadata and a timestamp, and every record is in a fixed order in that log, and what's called an offset. So if you're a consumer of that data, you can essentially in your own application keep a record of the last, like let's say the last offset where you pulled data, right? And then you can only query to the next offset on, right? So you can delimit how you're pulling data from there. So why is this advantageous? Like, why is this better than, say, sending event data into an analytics platform or directly into a CDP, right? The big difference here would be, again, this is kind of raw. It's like hit stream data. If anybody's worked in the Adobe world where you actually can stream and collect hit stream data in your data warehouse from Adobe, like it's very similar to that in the sense that, again, it's just the raw stream of these messages and the data they contain, right? In an ordered timestamped fashion. And because it lives in that broker, other applications can easily, as long as you have good governance in terms of data security, anybody who has the right API keys can access that stream. So it makes it so one that can, just like we have a universal data layer to make sure the key elements we're exposing on our website or in our apps are consistent. Now you have a raw stream of this data that through good governance and data quality management can have us, again, now you have this universal event data stream essentially. That can be accessed by a variety of different applications. Pretty powerful, right? Does that sound like could be useful in the world we play in?
I mean, it is useful, though I feel like more players and like more explanation needs to happen for main people to start adapting such technologies. Now, I know that big companies are already doing this, but I think that the the technology is a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't say too fresh, but it is fresh and it is complicated. Um, I think that,
Yes, it
I
is.
think that it takes time for people to adapt to new technologies unless they are very, very simple and people know what is the exact thing that the exact inputs and outputs that are going to be having from this product. So if 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 you were selling this technology to me, what would you say that for a business like myself, I'm a CEO now, as a CEO, what would be the benefits of such technology that I should be talking to the stakeholders about to implement within our organization to help us move forward? What would be the benefits?
Sure. So, as I think I was talking about Tim Berglund earlier before we started
Yeah.
the podcast. He's from Confluent. He's a big evangelist for this technology. And what he has this phrase that I really like, and let me see if I can find it real quick for you. But what he basically said is, legacy is life. So you're not going to replace these kind of large legacy systems that you've built. You're certainly not going to replace them overnight, right? So what he said is, old paradigms, they're supplemented, not supplanted, right? So it's probably highly unlikely that this kind of event-driven architecture is going to just sort of replace legacy systems and ways of collecting and utilizing data. There's a lot of reasons why databases, just traditional databases can be really useful in terms of structuring and organizing data. Some organizations, quite frankly, just don't have the scale of data to need something like this. But the interesting thing is in today's world, um, your annual revenue as a company is not always a good indicator of how data intensive your organization is. So there are a lot of smaller, SMBs and mid-tier companies, that aren't going to crack the Fortune 500 that are still very data intensive. Um, certain, if you have a e-commerce site with a huge product catalog, a lot of behavioral data you're trying to track, right? There's a lot of data intensive organizations and types of businesses. Um, what I would say is part of the value of data streams is that data it is centralized and it's democratized and it's done so in a way um, where you can allow each domain owner, so like the people who control customer records, the people who control transactional records, if you have a behavioral measurement team, your analytics records, each domain owner can control that data from as a publisher and send that data into the topics, right? So from the standpoint of, right, you still have the domain expertise controlling that data, but now it's in that broker where it can be utilized and kind of federated across your organization efficiently. Um, so that would be kind of in line with that whole data mesh philosophy, right? Where you have like individual domain expertise owning the appropriate like data sources that they have expertise over. Um, but the data streams of architect, right? Like that event-driven architecture allows that data to be made more readily available to other applications within the organization. Um, but you brought up a really good point earlier. I don't want to lose sight of. You said like it's complicated and like if you haven't done this, right, there's a lot of moving parts and um, it's fresh for a lot of people. It's different than being able to just pull data into my analytics platform and then analyze it. And you're right. So there are different like applications and APIs that kind of help with this. So I'll give like in that again in the Apache Kafka example, what they have what's called the Streams API, What this does is it allows you to filter, join, group, and aggregate this raw event streaming data. It allows you to join one topic, data from one topic with another. It allows you to do all those traditional kind of like querying and transformation type functions. The advantage of the Streams API is that it is what they call declarative versus imperative. So what does that mean? The language for using the API, you tell the API what you want to do with the data, but not how to do it. So it's a bit more kind of natural language. It's based on you tell you want to join these data sources, you want to pull these particular parameters, values, but you don't tell it how to do all of that. It knows how to, the code in the back end knows how to do that, right? Whereas a kind of traditional like imperative, you actually tell in the code how to execute those functions and things. So there are a lot of tools available to streamline that process, because you do still have to actually make use of the data, as your question kind of rightly hints at, right? Is however you get this data, whatever format you store it in or make it available, and you still have to do something with it in order. So if you want to run do any kind of data science against this, or just kind of standard sort of analysis and insights work, BI type work, you're going to have to transform this data in some way. So I would say the big benefit of the data streams is it's like more foundational than the data work itself, right? It's more like how do you set up the conditions for data to be readily available, in a fault tolerant, highly granular, highly democratized, and readily consumable way, right? So it doesn't. I don't think it answers the questions. It doesn't head on answer that question of how do I get business value out of this, right? Like at least in an easy way. In a sense, it's a enabling. It's a type of architecture that makes getting business value out of your data, more readily available to more teams and more functions within an organization, if that makes sense.
Similar to what was it that blog I was writing about was data democratization. It sounds
yeah. Talk about that a little bit more. I don't disagree. Say more about your thinking there.
Yeah, I mean it seems like data democratization, but it's more of a technical side how to do it rather than saying, digital data democratization is making data available for more teams and implementing data models. So each and every team can find value from the data that they are looking for without having to resort to ask someone for it or have to, drown in so much data that they don't use or don't have a use for and stuff like that. So it sounds a lot like data democratization, the technical part that no one is, no one is really seeing. Like, this is how you democratize the data, and this is how you do it technically. I think that's where we're getting at with this architecture and like this whole discussion.
Yeah, I mean, data democratization can mean a lot of things, right? It can mean if you have 15 individuals in an organization and that every time they want to answer the same business question, they each run a report individually, right? But they use slightly different filters, right? Slightly different methods. So they all end up with 15 different approaches, right? If you say as an organization, hey, we all want to answer the same business question, like let's make these agreed upon dashboards and data sources available to everybody, right? Um, that's kind of one really important form of data democratization, right? Of having transparent and consistent dashboards and reporting across an organization, and making it readily available to people. This is like data democratization in the sense of like of taking really foundational primary data, like events, timestamp event, ordered event data about user behavior, uh, transactions, customer accounts. Think about this on the supply chain side. You could have topics around inventory. You could have, if you're a manufacturing facility, you could have a data stream of remote sensors for your manufacturing equipment that you could drive analytics around, like maintenance scheduling, right? The sky's kind of the limit here, right? If you can collect the data, you can do this, right? So, but let's continue with our kind of e-commerce example. So you could have this customer order and behavioral data, right, in these logs, readily available to approved consumers of that data. You can also add a layer. The streams API I mentioned, that can be used. So all of that filtering, aggregating, grouping data functionality, you could actually now publish the output of that API query to a new topic, right? So like, let's say you have for vendors, like you don't want to output any PII data to your vendors, right? You only want to output hash. Like if you are going to send any kind of personal data, it's going to be hashed. And for some vendors, you might only want to output aggregated data without any personal information of any kind, right? So you can actually control, like you can create new topics with transformed data, scrubbed data that is appropriate for like only specific consumers of data, right? So that's another thing you can do with this functionality. The other nice thing is that the Streams API, that functionality lives within individual applications. So if I create a composable CDP, right, or if I integrated with a data warehouse, right, that Streams API, I'm doing that processing of the stream like within my own application, which means that means each stakeholder can transform and do things with the data in real time or near real time, like depending on how you architect this, like you can quite literally have like millisecond levels of latency in your stream data in your end application. So this has huge implications for any kind of real-time personalization recommendation, digital experience delivery that you're trying to do, anything you're trying to do dynamically on the fly. If you were trying to if you do really active campaign management based on real-time signals, right? Talk about real time. This is real time. And I think in cases where like safety and maintenance and those types of considerations are in effect. To really think about this in the broadest sense of digital maturity, I think being able to know kind of just in time when you need to be taking actions, machinery processes, anything like that could be really, really helpful to an organization. So it is democratization, but it's really at that it's at that foundational level. And I don't want to lose sight of that, right? Because this is not like if somebody was investing in this thinking, oh my gosh, like our business intelligence is going to be so powerful, right? Now our data science, like our media mix modeling is going to be so much better now. No, you'll now be able to maybe make use of data in new ways and build different pipelines. And you might be able to support a much like richer utilization of your CRM, of your CDP, of your customer engagement tools, but you're going to have to do the work. Right? You're still gonna have to do that work of porting that kind of raw kind of log of data into those systems. So I don't want to trivialize the amount of kind of work and solution design goes to it. What I do want to point out, like this is an emerging trend. It is gaining steam. There are some leading solutions in this space. I would say Apache Kafka is one of those. The folks at Confluent are putting out amazing content about this. They're evangelizing the heck out of it, showing what can be done. I think I think in our last episode we pointed out sort of some of the risks and pitfalls on the AI side of things, but this kind of granular real-time flow of data can also have really positive data implications, right, for kind of embedded ML and AI type applications, right, where you really do have the most current data that you're applying these trained models to, right? So in that sense, it can be really good fuel for a lot of other types of applications as well. So, yeah.
That sounds good. You have anything as closing notes?
Yeah, I mean, like everything composable, just keep in mind you shift you do shift a big burden towards your solution architects, your data engineering, and your front end development layer. And in this case, a lot of data, like the ingestion of data streams, is happening within individual applications themselves using things like Streams API. So again, you're going to have to, you would be investing in broadly speaking, additional like development resources to utilize these types of architectures. But again, for data intensive organizations, really could be worth it.
Sounds good. I guess that's all that we have time for today. If anyone has questions, please direct them at Patrick, not me. I am still understanding Apache Kafka. But if you want to know more about data democratization, the blog will be out. Then you can go and ask Patrick about the whole architecture stuff. But until we see you next time, see ya. Bye.
Thanks, my friend. Good as always. Bye. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Digital Disruption Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of digital transformation and gained valuable insights to help navigate the ever-changing landscape. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us on our website, e-CENS.com, or connect with us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and stay tuned for more exciting discussions on the forefront of digital innovation. Remember, the future is now, and it's time to embrace the power of transformation. Thanks for listening, and until next time.